Transformation is not found in the moment of awakening. It is found in the courage to live differently after the insights arrive. Welcome to the Voice of Impact, where belief meets action. A podcast amplifies stories, systems, and solutions behind meaningful change. I'm your host, Robert Ndoping. Today's conversation explores a space where leadership, consciousness, and personal transformation meet. Because real change doesn't come from information alone, it comes from awareness, integration, and the willingness to evolve. My guest today is Sam Liebowitz, known by many as the conscious consultant. Sam is a facilitator, mentor, speaker, healer, and a serial entrepreneur who has spent more than 3 decades helping individuals and leaders navigate personal and professional transformation. He's the host of the top-rated radio show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, a four-time best-selling author and the author of the #1 empowerment book, Everyday Awakening. Over the years, Sam has spoken at numerous venues across New York City and beyond, including a featured speaker at TEDx Upper West Side. Sam's work brings together a unique blend of indigenous wisdom traditions, Western alchemical principles, and modern psychological awareness. As a plant medicine integration guide and conscious leadership mentor, he helps leaders and high capacity individuals translate powerful insights into grounded, real world transformation, especially when navigating deep personal work. And he's expanded those states of consciousness into how human beings can evolve. What makes Sam's work distinct is his focus on not only peak experience, but on integration, helping people embody what they discover and translate into insights and meaningful change, which spreads into relationships, leadership, and impact. His philosophy is rooted in his responsibility, humility, and the belief that awareness must be paired with actions. Sam, welcome to the Voice of
Uh,
Impact today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert. Wow, that was quite an introduction. Who is this fellow? I got to meet him.
I love that. I love that. But Sam, we like to start with you. I mean, before the mentoring, before the speaking, before the books, before all the work you've done today, we want to learn more about you, your journey. I mean, what brought you into this work? I mean, what made you interested? How did you get to what you're doing today?
Wow. Well, I always say I'm just a nice Jewish boy from the Bronx. I'm just an average guy, nothing special about me, but I've had a very twisty, turny path throughout life. I often say life has a much better imagination for my life than I do. And I think my superpower has always been just kind of going with the flow and saying yes to what life puts in front of me. I started off my career working in IT, at financial institutions and nonprofits, and then quickly said corporate life is not for me. I was the guy who got in early, left late, and somehow my paycheck did not reflect that compared to the person in the cubicle next to me. So I'm like, if I'm going to put in this much effort, I want the reward. So I became a consultant with a partner who had been a consultant for a while. I joined him. We started a couple of businesses together and eventually split off. And I've had at least six, maybe seven different businesses over the course of, 35 years now. Jesus, I'm old. Um, and yeah, and I've just kind of gone where spirit took me.
I mean, that's such a rich experience. You're not old, you're just wise. So,
Experienced, and I got the gray hairs to prove it, what little bit is left.
exactly that. So, I mean, Sam, was there a defining moment that shifted how you saw the world and which led you into some
Mhm.
of these things that you do right now?
Oh, yeah, that's a challenging question for me to answer because I, we'd be here all day kind of going through the story, but let's just put it this way. When I was young, when I was in high school, I experienced certain things I could not explain. That was just like kind of opened my mind to, you know what? There's more to this world than just what we see, feel, taste, touch here. And I got involved in a very spiritual path early in life with some friends. And unfortunately that went south um, after a while, and I ended up extricating myself from that situation. And once I left, I really so much of my identity was tied up in that experience that I didn't know who I was when I removed myself from that situation. I didn't know what to believe in. I didn't know what was real anymore. So that's when I sort of became an entrepreneur, just kind of focused on making money for a period of time and for like a good 15 years and doing some healing work and just trying to get back to myself in a way. And then after I got married, my wife is a psychotherapist, very open, and and I sort of found some old personal development tapes and shared them with her. She got really into it, started going to the back to these things, Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, all these personal development, and then getting kind of slowly but surely the universe kind of nudging me back towards the spirituality. And it was really quite interesting because if I had just gone, straight back into spiritual studies, I would have gone kicking and screaming in the opposite direction. But it was like these little nudges, these little opportunities, like go here, go there. I started taking some healing workshops, not because I ever thought of myself as a healer, but just for my own healing, because I knew there was still a lot of emotional stuff that wasn't very resolved from my past. And I had been a consultant. I'd worked in real estate. I'd done different things. I started doing trainings, teaching people how do you start your own small business. And and then I took this one workshop, and like most of these healing workshops, it's like they teach you about the modality, and then you pair up with other participants and you practice with each other. And so I was at this one workshop, and they asked for a couple of volunteers. So I go up, this woman goes up, and I do this method on this woman who said she was feeling really congested and sick, like she was going to get sick, and she really wanted someone to work on her. And I worked on her just short time, 5, 10 minutes. And she was like, "Oh, wow, I can breathe." I go, "Oh, that's wonderful." She goes, "No, no, no, listen." She takes this deep breath. You hear that? I go, "Yeah, it sounds good." She goes, "No, you don't understand. I've had chronic bronchitis since I was 6 years old. I haven't been able to breathe like this since I was a little kid." And I was just like, "Oh, oh, oh, wow." So like this isn't just for me to help myself. Like I can use this stuff to help other people. But like that night, I come home and I talk to my wife. I'm like, "What do you do with this? I'm a business guy. I'm a coach, consultant. What do you do with this?" And sort of in meditation, sort of the message kind of dropped in that, well, you're still a consultant. You're just a different kind of consultant. And that's when the conscious consultant was born. And it was the idea of then taking all this stuff I learned about energy and healing and applying it to working with people in business and careers and relationships and other stuff. But instead of like focusing on what most coaches do, which is strategy and the techniques to get you there, I would work with the clients to feel into what's really the underlying energetic pattern that's repeating, that's causing this issue showing up in your life. And and what was interesting was, people would come to me because they were having a problem with an employee or coworker or partner or something. And we'd really dive into it, like what is the real challenge? What is the trigger? Why, when have you felt like this before? And usually we'd end up talking about some childhood thing, their parents or something, and I'd give them some processes to work on. And then not only would the relationship with this troubling coworker resolve, but suddenly other things got better. The relationship with their wife got better. They started making more money. Like all kinds of things unwound because we went to sort of a deeper place. And so I, I've always sort of looked for ways in which I can help people not deal with symptoms so much, but really get to the root cause, really get to the base challenge. And what I found from, after getting back involved in the personal development space and then getting back into spiritual development and stuff, that I saw there was one real key issue with personal development, and that was these people were great. They would have like their take on things. They'd speak to thousands of people and they'd be like, just follow my system. I've studied all these different people. You just got to follow what I do. And like it never made sense to me because they studied with lots of different people to find their own path. So shouldn't all the people attending study with lots of different people to follow their own path? But then also I noticed you go for this weekend, this boot camp, retreat, whatever it is, you've had this peak experience, and then you come home and you don't have any support. And you're back in the same environment, and the old habits and the old patterns come back up. And yeah, maybe you make some little shifts. I mean, again, like, sure, there's always the 1%, 5% people who come back and they totally transform their life and they do it because they were just ripe and ready for it. But the vast majority of people who go to these personal development seminars, they're not. And without the integration, this is what I learned later on, without the support of a community, without the integration of working on how do you actually apply this stuff to make changes in your day-to-day life, it was a great weekend, but so what? And so that's when I really started to focus on, well, how do we make a real shift in people's lives? How do we really move the needle in a way that really makes a difference to them? And that's what I've been really dedicated my life to for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years.
As that story is really deep, and yeah, it really shows that there's been a big amount of transformation there for you. I mean, before supporting other people. I want to touch on something. I mean, your work emphasizes that transformation isn't about the peak experience. It's
Right.
about what happens after. So,
Right.
what is integration? I mean, to you, and why is that integration such a critical component of personal and spiritual growth?
I'll give you an example of a client who my wife and I have worked with over the last year and a half now, roughly. And this woman had been seeing my wife for therapy and other things. And my wife could see real clearly years ago that her husband was a raging narcissist. She even recommended to her, go check it out. And she couldn't see it herself. She was too tied up in it. But in the last year, working together, um, to really, in a ceremonial way and using indigenous practices, she's come such a long way that within 6 months, she again looked to see like what are the qualities of a narcissist and stuff. Be, be, and he had like all the classic symptoms. And at first she was terrified and she was scared. She couldn't sleep at night. Like, how could this person she's been with for over 20 years like be such an awful person? But with the support and helping her through the process, she said, you know what? I can't live like this anymore. She got a divorce. Literally, she got divorced within 6 months. She was terrified of being by herself alone in the house. She now lives, I mean, she has her daughters living with her who are adults, but she sleeps by herself. She's much more confident. She has so much less shame. Um, and, and and that didn't happen from just one peak experience. It was a peak experience working, getting the support to make some different choices, starting to show up a little bit different, maybe another peak experience. Then you work together a little bit more and work together a little bit more. And it's a whole process. So did it happen in a weekend and in a night? No. But over a p period of about a year, she's completely transformed her life. Now, for some people, a year is really fast. Some people it takes 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. But I'm like, look, if it took you 30, 40, 50 years to get to where you are today, if it takes 5 years to transform your life, then great. That's better than it taking 30 years. But a lot of people are in a rush and they want to, change and they think, oh, I got to have this really deep experience to change my life. And it's like, no, it's the little baby steps. When we try and jump at something too far away from where we are, we can't sustain it. The balance, the structure isn't there, and we fall back down. But when you make little baby steps, one little change at a time, another little change at a time, and you get the support and you have community around you and people cheering you on and people really rooting for you, then those baby steps hold because you're not doing a big jump. You're doing little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. Yeah, sometimes you slide back, but you keep going a little bit, little bit, little bit. And to me, that's where the real transformation happens. Because when you make these changes, these tweaks to your life, little by little, they stay. That you don't lose them. They're much easier to maintain and hold on to. And to me, there's too much of people looking for some big peak experience so they can change their entire life in a weekend. Rarely, rarely does that ever happen.
Hope somebody's listening. And I think that was the lesson there in its own. Really just talking about that peak experience and those little transformations that make a change. I mean, for somebody listening who doesn't know about indigenous traditional practices, can you just, in summary, give an idea of what that is?
There are all kinds of indigenous practices from vision quests and other kinds of ceremonial work. But what's really popular right now is the plant medicine work, right? And psychedelic medicines. And I'm kind of on a mission right now to really educate people about it because I talk to people, I hear people doing things that are completely unsafe, that they don't really have not really researched and understood the implications of it, because it's become very popular. Psilocybin has become legalized in Oregon and Colorado. It's decriminalized in New Mexico. There's another like 7 states, I think, that have bills in their legislature to either legalize it for medical purposes or just legalize it, period. And so the the whole country is moving towards an acceptance of these ancient sacred plants that indigenous cultures have been working with for thousands and thousands of years. I had the honor and the privilege of going down to Peru a couple of years ago with a mentor, and I sat with the Huni Kuni tribe, who have one of the oldest traditions working with ayahuasca, and their tradition goes back 3,500 years. I mean, 3,500 years. Can you imagine? And and it was a profound experience because it wasn't just working with the tribe, but it was the land. It was like being in Peru, the land. There's an energy to it that holds you. But for them, it's not like, oh, something you do at a retreat on a weekend and then go tell all your friends about. For them, it's a way of life. And and so I'm really looking to educate people about how to choose a facilitator to work with. What are the different kinds of plants and substances that you can work with? What are the potential risks? People don't talk about the risks enough. How do you do it safely? I had a woman who was a former host on my radio network in Toronto contact me and say, oh, she has a friend whose son went down to Colombia and did ayahuasca and he came back and he's not the same and this and that. And I had to have a call with the family to kind of educate them about how to work with their son who, really he didn't know what he was doing. He went to a very challenging experience, came back and literally was not himself. And so th people think, oh, I'll go and take a bunch of mushrooms and I'll be fine. No, you might not be fine. If there's a history of bipolar or schizophrenia in your family, you're taking a huge risk. So while these medicines can be extremely potent and extremely powerful, there are safe ways and unsafe ways to do them. And people are just rushing without thinking about it, without doing their own research into engaging with these sacred substances and not doing it in a sacred way, really. And sometimes they work with what I call these hit and run shamans who come up from South America. They're here for a week and then they're gone. And then the person's left after they had this big experience and they don't know how to integrate it, and there's no one around to give them any support. So they're very powerful and they're amazing substances to engage with, but they demand respect and they demand that you really treat it with the honor that you would any sacred spiritual practice. And so I find that this concept of peak experience without the integration, it's rampant in the psychedelic industry. And that's why I'm really trying to plead with people. If you've heard about some friend who had an amazing experience and you're thinking about doing it, don't just do it because your friend had a great experience. Do your research, reach out to people, get some guidance, get some recommendations. Like don't just go because one friend went and had a good time. Like find out what's this person's background, what's the lineage they're under, how long have they been doing it, what kinds of support services do they offer? I mean, there's so many just basic questions to ask before you engage. Don't rush into it. Because the more mindful we are, the more we can get out of the experience.
Yeah, these are some insights there, at least for people to learn and for people to understand. Just talking about everyday life as well. I mean, what role does discipline, in your opinion, play in personal growth?
I mean, of course, it plays a huge role and making those day-to-day changes in your life, it's all about discipline because at first you try and make a change, it's uncomfortable. Like when you first learn to have good boundaries with people, people push back on you having good boundaries, especially your family. They're going to run over your boundaries in an instant because you've never had boundaries with them before, your family. But as you start to do your own work and you value yourself and you learn that, like, you know what? I don't have to say yes to everything. When you start saying no to people, they're going to push back on that no to see if you really mean it because they're not used to you saying no. So you really have to have the discipline and the sort of mental aptitude and strength to really stand up for your convictions. I like to say you want to take your consciousness to the gym once in a while and exercise like you do your muscles and build up those emotional muscles and those awareness muscles so that when you find yourself in a situation and it doesn't feel safe to you or it just doesn't feel right, that you're like, no. And and I often say to people, remember, no is a complete sentence and you don't have to explain it. No is no. And it's just the way you feel, and that's okay. But we have to honor ourselves and we have to value ourselves enough that we're willing to put the effort and the time in to really discipline ourselves to say no when we really mean no. And we say yes when we really mean yes. And if we're not sure, then I'm not sure, not now, maybe later.
Yeah, if you're not sure, then I'm not sure now, then maybe later. I love that one. So, Sam, you work, you work with leaders and entrepreneurs, and you carry a lot of responsibility, on your shoulders because you really support these people to
Mm,
transform, and to move forward, what you term evolve. How does
mhm.
conscious leadership differ from traditional leadership models?
Well, I feel like a lot of traditional leadership models were purely focused on the leader. It was all about him or her and what they are trying to do for the organization, the group, whatever they're trying to do. And conscious leadership, it's not all about you. It's all about the people you're serving. It's really, to me, it's about being a servant leader. You lead by serving people. And it's not just what's best for the organization of the people, but what's best for the environment, for the planet, for the employees, the customers, for everyone. It's a much more holistic approach that's far more sustainable than just how do we beat our quarterly earnings and how do we get to the IPO and how do we make our shareholders a whole bunch of money. There's so much more to life. And there's so much more to consider. I mean, look what's happening with our environment. Look what's happening with the world. The world doesn't need more successful people right now. It needs more peacemakers. The Dalai Lama said that decades ago, and it's more true than ever before. Being a conscious leader is recognizing that there's more, that there's an impact that all your choices make on all the people whose lives you touch. So it's a much more pervasive, it's a much more expansive way of looking at leadership.
Yeah, I agree with you. And how can a leader balance performance and consciousness?
Well, it's knowing that at the end of the day, for whatever you're engaging in, to truly be sustainable, people have to be taken care of. You can't work people to death. They won't be as productive, they won't be as creative, and their morale won't be as high, and they won't be as loyal to you. But when you really take care of people, when you really show them compassion, when you really give them the support, the authority, the resources, what they need to take care of a project, a responsibility, whatever, when you really enable them to be the best that they can be at what they're doing, then you know they are going to perform the best, even if they're not working 24/7. And that when you show people compassion, they appreciate that so much, they will go above and beyond the call of duty for you because you've opened your heart to them. And that's a scary thing for most leaders.
Yeah, so you also guide people in preparation and integration for plant medicine experiences. How do
Mhm.
these ancient traditions intersect with modern leadership and personal development?
So with conscious leadership, with being able to sort of have a bigger view of what we're engaged in, of what we're trying to accomplish, engaging in these traditional plant medicine ceremonies, we enter an altered state of consciousness that's much more expansive. I use the map of heart, body, mind, and spirit. That there's sort of these four aspects of our consciousness, and that when we engage in these substances, we can focus on heart. What's our emotional content like? Where are we in terms of how open-hearted we are in working with people? How much compassion, self-compassion, self-love, love for others do we really have? Body, which is about presence and about our physical health and taking care of ourselves. Mind, which is about being smart and being thoughtful. Again, in Western society, we overemphasize the mind and we underemphasize everything else. But it's knowing that the mind has value, but it's on par with everything else. And then spirit is touching upon that inexplicable thing that happens, those coincidences, the serendipities, the creativities and the inspiration that we get that we don't even know where it comes from. So all those four aspects can come together as we open up to them in this sort of indigenous ceremonial experience, that then we learn to bring them into our day-to-day life. Then we show up and we can connect with our coworkers, our partners, our employees better. We can learn how to be more vulnerable. We feel safe enough to be vulnerable with people without marinating in our pain, that we can be even more insightful. We can see things in ways that other people can't see things because by engaging in these things, we've actually created new neural pathways so we can think more creatively. And then when we're really present to the moment and we can feel sort of that very subtle feelings of what's going on between people and in the organizations and with these projects or something, that we can actually tap into a greater intelligence than what we're used to, that we can have hunches and 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 guesses around things that turn out to be much, much better than we could ever logically think through. So all these different aspects of our consciousness, they can be heightened in a ceremony, and then once we know the feeling of what it's like and how to work with this level of consciousness, and then we work on integrating that in our day-to-day life, now we have access to more of who we are, that we can then bring not just to work, but to our relationships, to everything that we do.
Consciousness and integration. I'm really learning something here. I mean, what, in your opinion, is a responsible integration? How does it actually look like?
So I always recommend that people, when they're serious about their integration, to work with either a professional, a therapist, psychologist, or a guide, a coach, somebody who has done their own work, someone who's familiar with this kind of a map and has been engaged with it for a while. Now, they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be a few steps ahead of you. And then it's the integration sort of, again, I'm going to use my map of all these four, needs to involve heart, emotions, body, the physicality and the presence, mind, our thoughts and our where we can direct things, and spirit, which is our creativity and being open to that inspiration. Now, it doesn't mean you work on all of these at the same time, but integration takes time. It's something that happens over periods. So over that period of time to touch upon each of these four aspects. And for heart, maybe it's about learning how to have more heart-to-heart conversations with those close to you. For body, it could be a new exercise routine or just eating healthier or practicing breath work or something that focuses on the body. For mind, it might be planning things out a little bit more. It might be visualizing our goals, our dreams a little bit more. And for spirit, it's giving up the how am I going to get there, leave that to spirit and focus on the what. And maybe engaging in something creative, maybe you learn an instrument or do some writing or dancing or just engage in some kind of creative activity that feeds your soul. And so when you apply all of these four aspects into your integration, it becomes a very rich experience and it enhances every aspect of your life.
I'm learning something and I'm really enjoying, the direction and how you're building on some of this. It really speaks to the amount of experience that you've had within this domain. So, Sam, when you look back and you reflect on the leaders, the individuals, the entrepreneurs that you've worked with, what are some patterns or mistakes that you see that, leaders and entrepreneurs constantly make when it comes to really evolving and really leading with consciousness?
I would say two things that come to mind immediately. The first is they have to do it alone. It's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got to do this. If I delegate it to somebody else, they're not going to do it as well. Big mistake. Nothing ever gets accomplished by anybody by themselves of value. It always takes a team. And so you got to cultivate a team, bring good people together and work with a team. And the second thing is it's not all about you. Too many leaders, too many entrepreneurs, they make it all about themselves and it's not. It's about who you serve. And so when you have a good team and you're focused on who you serve, you can create real magic.
It's not all about you. It's about
Yeah.
who you serve. I love that message, and I think that message must have landed with somebody listening today. It's not all about you. It's about who you serve. That message just sits so well with me. So Sam, what message would you leave for someone listening right now who feels that call to grow, but isn't sure where to start?
Hmm. First, make it okay that you're not sure where to start. Like, be present to what you're truly feeling and honor that. And then seek out the advice of people you respect. Who do you know? We all know somebody who's maybe a little further along in their path or who's a little more successful or who's where you want to be eventually and ask them. I'm not sure what to do. Do you have somebody you recommend? Do you have a coach, a guide, a consultant, somebody who you would recommend that I work with for my particular situation, that could really support me through making some changes in my life? And don't just get one recommendation, get three or four or five and interview each of them and see who really appeals to you, who feels right, who do you resonate with that you feel you could have a really good working relationship. And it's not necessarily somebody who's going to take it easy on you. They can hold your feet to the fire, but it's somebody who you feel there's some kind of a connection, some kind of relationship that's more than just a logical relationship. There's some kind of affinity there that helps to bring the two of you together.
That's a really powerful one. So, Sam, we have a tradition at the Voice of Impact. We have a wet die here with a couple of themes on it, and I will definitely read it out because I don't think you'll be able to see all of what I'm trying to show here on the screen. So, the themes are make a difference, rebuild, overcome, stronger, Peace and patience. I'll repeat it again. Make a difference, rebuild, overcome, stronger, peace and patience. So I'll give you an opportunity to choose two out of the six themes, one that speaks to your own journey, and then one for somebody listening.
I guess peace and patience. Um, I'll do patience first and then peace. So patience is so important because sometimes our timing is not life's timing for us. And being patient and persistent and sticking with it and just knowing like things are going to work out, having the patience to just stay with something, that's like 99% of it. Just being patient. Peace is about cultivating the internal peace so that you can really be present with yourself, with others, with the work you engage in. Because when you're truly present with it, you'll see things other people won't see. You'll feel things other people won't feel. And you will show up in a different way that people will wonder, like, ooh, what did Robert do? He seems so much more peaceful. He seems so much more present. That's amazing. I got to find out what Robert is up to. So peace and patience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words. So, Sam, let's say somebody's listening to us today and really wants to connect with you. How can people, what are the best ways that people can reach you, learn more about the work, and also about Everyday Awakening and the Conscious Consultant Hour?
Sure. So, I have my own show like you have yours, Robert. My show is called The Conscious Consultant Hour, and we stream it live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time because I'm based in New York City till 1 p.m. And you can listen to it on talkradio.nyc. You can watch the videos we're on all the major social platforms. Just look for Talk Radio NYC on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and you'll see the live streams. And if you want to reach out to me personally, my website is theconsciousconsultant.com. And you can always email me at sam@theconsciousconsultant.com.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much. And I know somebody listening would definitely want to be able to reach out, listen to your show as well. I mean, I got an opportunity to do my research, and I mean, you do such an amazing work. And I believe the audience would definitely want to be able to, one, learn more about what you do, learn more about your consultancy, listen to your radio show. Yeah, I know they'll find a lot of value out of it. And thank you for really taking the time to sit with us today, Sam. It was a very rich experience, I believe, for our audience as well.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for having me on your show and allowing me to share my experience with your audience. I really appreciate that. And I really hope that there's somebody listening to this who gets at least one nugget from it that helps them with whatever challenges they're dealing with.
That's amazing. So today's conversation reminds us that awakening is not about escaping reality. It's about engaging with it more consciously, more passionately, and more responsibly. To the person listening right now, growth begins with awareness. Wisdom grows through reflection, and transformation happens when insight becomes action. Awareness may awaken you, but integration is what transforms your life. I just had to borrow that from Sam, just from everything that he had put together for us today. We are Ndoping and co-performance designers and strategy coaches. We help leaders and organizations create clarity, alignment, and sustainable impact. This has been the Voice of Impact. Until next time, keep learning, keep evolving, and keep using your voice. Thank you for joining us today, Sam.
It's very simple. Empower as many people as possible. Empower as many leaders as possible. Touch as many, professionals as I can. Be able to make a difference.